William, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Chicago Hunger Strike Commemoration Committee for inviting me here today, and Irish Freedom Committee of Chicago, Irish Republican Socialist Committees in North America, and especially assembled guests for supporting this event this evening. I know some of you are very familiar with the events I'm about to speak. Some of you may not be. Anybody who wants to learn any more information, it's certainly available online on the internet. We also have a literature table here. I can speak with some of the organisers of the organization. On that basis, I've kept my speech fairly broad in general, because I wanted it directed more to people that weren't so familiar with that tragic part of Irish history. So I'm sure some of you might find it a little bit too broad and simplistic. I just wanted to understand that's where I was basing the focus. You know, we're obviously assembled here today to commemorate and honour our friends and comrades who died on hunger strike in the Haste Blocks 28 years ago. I mean, why would young men in their prime of life embark on a slow, protracting, agonising death on hunger strike, especially when many of them would have been released within a relatively short period of time? If they hadn't embarked on that death fast to gain, or regain rather, recognition as political status. Perhaps we need to look at the conditions in which the hunger strikers come in and their friends and comrades come into this world. In the 1950s, the hunger strikers were born in a divided Ireland, an Ireland which had been partitioned by the British government in 1921, a state established by the British government and protected by British troops and British guns. And to this day, despite the Good Friday Agreement, the British government retains a standing army of between 8,000 and 10,000 regular British troops garrisoned throughout Northern Ireland. It was a state ruled by a monolithic unionist party with a gerrymandered built-in permanent majority. The state was named Northern Ireland, and so entrenched was the unionist party in this sectarian state that the unionist party and the state became one and the same entity. As well as British government support, the unionist party was protected locally by their own bigoted police force known as the RUC, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and their murderous militia, the B Specials. The Catholic community in this state were treated with contempt. They suffered religious discrimination in housing and employment. Non-rate players were disenfranchised at the polls, and the gerrymandered electoral boundaries ensured a unionist majority in local councils and general elections, even in communities and areas where nationalists were in the majority. And this religious discrimination in employment forced a wedge between Protestant and Catholic workers and caused deep divisions that prevented any meaningful long-term working class unity. Any efforts at working class unity was seen as a direct threat to the state and was crushed by the forces of that state, including using British regular troops. And this division within the working class in Northern Ireland and division of the nation as a whole has continually subverted the development of class politics in Ireland and hampered the struggle for national liberation. Reforms are no substitute for true liberty. The IRA armed struggle of the 1950s, conducted primarily in the border counties and popularly known as the Border Campaign, fizzled out in 1962. Various efforts over the years by nationalists to gain constitutional reforms within the confines of the state were repeatedly rejected, leading to growing feelings of frustration, resentment and alienation within the nationalist communities in the face of contemptuous continuing unionist intransigence. This alienation and frustration eventually led to the formation of the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, which was influenced by the American Civil Rights Movement and employed similar tactics of non-violent protest and civil disobedience. The Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association marches were banned under the Special Powers Act. This draconian piece of loathsome legislation, supposedly to preserve public order, was written specifically to suppress any opposition to the Unionist regime. Indeed, a former South African Prime Minister said that he would have given up all the laws of apartheid if he could have enacted just one section of the Northern Ireland Special Powers Act. Peaceful civil rights marches were violently suppressed and attacked by the RUC, or else attacked by loyalist mobs while the RUC looked on. On October 5, 1968 in Derry City, the Civil Rights March was viciously attacked by the RUC, resulting in many marchers receiving serious injuries, including a member of the British Parliament. Nationalists and Republicans were supposed to know their place and stay in it. But why such a backlash against citizens who sought simply to gain reforms and basic civil rights? Well, as I said earlier, the Unionist Party and the state had become one entity. Therefore, to confront the Unionist Party was to confront the state itself. But the backlash was to backfire, as the world's press captured the events in Derry live on camera and beamed the images around the world. Images of RUC men viciously beating helpless, peaceful marchers. But as the civil rights movement grew stronger and organised marches tens of thousands strong, so the loyalist backlash increased. Despite the apparent strength of the Unionist regime, the strength of its local militia and the control of the judiciary, its 48-year existence had gone relatively unchallenged. Its existence was based on the fragile fabric of ignorance, bigotry and hatred. Now it faced protests and mass marchers of nationalists and Republicans who were determined not to be treated as second-class citizens anymore. The seething loyalist backlash finally erupted en masse onto the streets and country lanes of Northern Ireland in August 1969. Loyalist mobs attacked Catholic homes in Belfast and burned them to the ground. My next door neighbour, Gerald McCauley, who was a member of the Fine Gael, was shot down in cold blood in the Clonard area as he tried to help his neighbours flee for their lives, as their homes were petrol bombed and burned to the ground.